Billionaire acts poor to propose to his girlfriend. What he found out will shock you. She looked him dead in the eyes, slid the ring off the table and said, "I can't marry a man who has nothing." And in that moment, Ryan Cole, one of the wealthiest men in the entire country, said absolutely nothing. He just nodded, picked up his worn-out jacket, and walked out the door. But here's what she didn't know. She didn't know about the ring box hidden in his coat pocket, a $4.2 million diamond he'd picked out 6 months ago. She didn't know about the private jet waiting 3 miles away. She didn't know that the nothing she just rejected owned the building they were standing in. And she definitely didn't know what Ryan had discovered about her, just 48 hours before he got down on one knee. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved more than yourself, this story is going to hit you somewhere deep. Stay with me, because what happens next nobody saw coming. Not even Ryan. Let's rewind 6 months earlier. Ryan Cole was 34 years old, and by every measure that the world uses to keep score, he had won. His company, Cole Tech Solutions, had just crossed $2.3 billion in valuation. He had a penthouse in Manhattan, a lake house in Vermont, and a security team that followed him everywhere. But Ryan had a problem that money couldn't fix. He was lonely. Not the kind of lonely where you sit in an empty room. The kind of lonely where you're surrounded by hundreds of people, investors, assistants, lawyers, friends, and you feel absolutely nothing. Because Ryan had learned something painful over the years, something that had broken him quietly, over and over again. He could never fully trust anyone. Every woman he'd ever dated had found out who he was within the first few weeks, and the moment they did, everything changed. The way they looked at him, the things they laughed at, the way they touched him, it all became calculated. He wasn't Ryan anymore. He was the billionaire, the prize, the ticket. His best friend and head of security, Jack Whitfield, had watched this happen too many times. One evening, sitting in Ryan's penthouse with 2 glasses of whiskey between them, Jack said something that Ryan would never forget. "You want to find someone real, then stop being Ryan Cole for a while, just be a guy named Ryan." Ryan laughed it off. But the idea never left him. 3 weeks later, Ryan made one of the strangest decisions of his life. He rented a small apartment in Brooklyn under a fake last name, Ryan Brooks. He drove a 2009 Honda Civic that he paid cash for. He wore jeans and hoodies. He got a part-time job at a small neighborhood hardware store just to have a cover story. Jack thought he'd lost his mind. "You own a $2 billion company," Jack said, "and you're stocking shelves." "I'm living," Ryan said. "There's a difference." And for the first time in years, he felt it. That quiet, simple feeling of just being a normal person. Nobody stared, nobody whispered, nobody wanted anything from him. He ate at diners. He walked in the rain. He played chess in the park with an old man named George who never asked where he worked or what he was worth. For 3 weeks, it was the most peaceful he'd felt in a decade. And then he met Claire. Claire Patterson was a 3rd-grade teacher. She was warm and funny and had this laugh that made the whole room feel lighter. She wasn't trying to be anything. She wasn't performing. She was just her. Ryan met her on a Saturday morning at a tiny coffee shop 2 blocks from his rented apartment. She was grading papers, and she'd accidentally taken his coffee. She didn't even notice until he tapped her on the shoulder, and she looked up, flustered, red-faced, completely embarrassed, and said, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm a disaster. Please don't be mean about it." He laughed, a real laugh, one he hadn't heard come out of himself in a long time. "I'm Ryan," he said. "Claire," she said, handing back his coffee, "and I swear I'm not usually a coffee thief." They talked for 2 hours. By the end of that morning, Ryan knew something had shifted inside him. Over the next several weeks, Ryan and Claire became inseparable. They went to farmers' markets. They cooked bad pasta together in his tiny Brooklyn kitchen. They argued about movies. They stayed up until 3 a.m. talking about everything and nothing. Claire knew Ryan as a regular guy, someone who worked at a hardware store, someone who drove a beat-up car and lived in a small apartment and split the check at dinner. And she loved him anyway. That was the thing that was breaking Ryan open from the inside. She wasn't falling for his money. She wasn't falling for his power. She was falling for him, the real him. The quiet, uncertain, slightly awkward him that he'd buried under decades of success and control. 3 months in, he knew he was going to marry her. He told Jack. Jack sat quietly for a long moment. "Ryan, she doesn't know who you are." "I know. You have to tell her." "I will, I want to be sure." "Sure of what?" Ryan looked out the window at the city below. "Sure that she'd love me even if I had nothing. I need to know that before I tell her everything." Jack understood, but he also looked worried, and Ryan would later understand exactly why. 2 more months passed, 5 months total now. Ryan had the ring. He'd had it custom-made, a stunning $4.2 million diamond, but designed simply, elegantly. Something Claire would wear, not a status symbol, a promise. He was planning to propose. He was going to tell her everything, who he really was, what he really owned, and why he'd done what he'd done. He was going to lay it all out and hope that she understood. Hope that she'd see he wasn't trying to trick her. He was trying to protect something real before it got contaminated. But then, 2 days before the proposal, Jack called. And when Ryan answered, the tone in Jack's voice turned his blood cold. "Ryan, I need you to come in. I need to show you something." Ryan drove to the city, to his real office. He sat down across from Jack, who slid a folder across the table without a word. Ryan opened it. Inside were photographs, printed emails, financial records, and a name he recognized. Derek Holt. Ryan's jaw tightened. Derek Holt was a rival, a bitter, calculating businessman who had been trying to acquire Cole Tech for over 2 years. Every deal had fallen through. Every negotiation had gone nowhere. Derek had walked away from the last meeting with a threat thinly disguised as a handshake. Ryan looked up at Jack. "What is this?" "Keep reading," Jack said quietly. Ryan turned the page. There were messages between Derek Holt and Claire Patterson. Ryan's hands went very still. The messages started 8 months ago. 2 weeks before Ryan had ever stepped foot in that coffee shop. He read every single word. It took him 11 minutes. When he was done, he closed the folder. He sat perfectly still, and the room around him seemed to go completely silent. Claire had known who he was the entire time. Derek had found out about Ryan's plan through a leak inside Ryan's own company before Ryan had even acted on it. And Derek had put Claire in place, coached her, funded her, paid her to get close to Ryan to make him fall in love and then to gather information, financial data, strategic plans, whatever she could get access to. The coffee shop meeting wasn't an accident. She had taken his coffee on purpose. Every laugh, every late night, every moment that Ryan had thought was real had been engineered. Ryan stood up, walked to the window, and stared at the city for a very long time. Jack waited. Finally, Ryan turned around. "Cancel nothing," Ryan said. "Don't tip her off. Don't contact Derek. Don't change anything." Jack stared at him. "What are you going to do?" Ryan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the ring box. "I'm going to finish what I started." The next evening, Ryan picked Claire up just like always. His beat-up Civic, his hoodie, his easy smile. She was glowing. She had no idea he knew. They went to their spot, a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn that they'd been going to since their second date. Same corner table, same candle, Same waiter who always called Claire the teacher. They ate, they talked. Ryan was warm and present and completely calm. And watching her across that table, watching how naturally she played the role, how perfectly she performed warmth, Ryan felt something that surprised him. Not rage. Grief. Because somewhere inside all the performance he had to ask himself, was any of it real to her at all, even a little? After dinner, Ryan got down on one knee. The whole restaurant went quiet. Claire's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. She looked genuinely shocked, genuinely emotional. And maybe she was. Ryan would never fully know. He opened the box, just a simple ring, the modest one, not the $4 million diamond. He'd left that one behind. "Claire," he said quietly, "I love you, and I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" There was a long pause. Something moved across her face, something complicated, something that looked almost like real pain. And then she said it. "I can't marry a man who has nothing." There it was. Not because she was cruel, not just because of Derek, but because Ryan was watching her very carefully, and in that exact moment he saw it. The calculation, the slight shift in her eyes, the decision being made. She had done the math. If Ryan was truly broke, he had no value to Derek's plan, and Derek must have told her, if he's got nothing, walk away. She was following her instructions. Ryan nodded slowly. He stood up. He put the ring box back in his pocket. "Okay," he said. And he walked out. Outside the restaurant, the cold night air hit him hard. Jack was waiting across the street, leaning against a black car, watching. Ryan walked over, said nothing for a moment. Then he took a long breath. "How long until the press release is ready?" Ryan asked. Jack almost smiled. "Whenever you give the word. Give it 24 hours. And Derek?" Ryan looked back at the restaurant. Through the window he could see Claire still sitting at the table, staring at her phone, probably texting Derek right now. "The evidence goes to the SEC in the morning," Ryan said. "Corporate espionage, securities fraud, everything. Let the lawyers do what lawyers do." Jack nodded. "And what about her?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "She made her choice," he said simply. "So did I." He got in the car. The next morning, the story broke everywhere. Not the proposal, not Claire, something bigger. Ryan Cole, CEO of Cole Tech Solutions, one of the 50 richest men in the United States, had just announced the largest acquisition deal in the company's history. $3 billion. International expansion. The kind of announcement that stopped trading on the stock exchange for 6 minutes while the market recalibrated. His photo was on every business channel, every tech blog, every news feed. The same face Claire had been waking up next to in Brooklyn. Ryan Brooks, the hardware store guy, the beat-up Civic. Ryan Cole, the billionaire. By noon, Claire's phone had probably exploded. Ryan never called her. He didn't need to. 3 weeks later, Ryan was back in his penthouse, back in his world, meeting with lawyers, prepping for expansion, doing what he did. Jack walked in one afternoon with a look on his face that Ryan had learned to pay attention to. "You need to see something," Jack said. Ryan looked up. Jack handed him a single piece of paper, a printout of an email thread. Ryan read it slowly, and then he read it again. It was a conversation between Claire and Derek Holt, dated 3 weeks before the restaurant, before the proposal. In the messages, Derek was pushing Claire to get more information, faster. He was threatening her subtly at first, then directly, telling her that she had gone too far to back out, reminding her of the money she owed him, debts that Ryan hadn't known about, debts that Claire had been drowning in before Derek found her. Claire's replies were short, clipped, afraid. And in one message, Dated exactly 1 week before the proposal night. Claire had written 6 words that Ryan had to read 3 times before he believed them. I think I actually love him. Derek's response had been instant and cold. That's not what I'm paying you for. Ryan set the paper down. He stared at the far wall for a long time. Jack let the silence sit. Finally, Ryan spoke. She said no to protect herself from Derek. Jack nodded slowly. If she said yes, Derek had leverage. A fiancé with access to your life, your home, your information. She'd be trapped even deeper. Saying no was the only way out she could see. Ryan closed his eyes. The woman who had said, "I can't marry a man who has nothing," had possibly done it to save him. Or herself. Or both. He didn't know. He still doesn't know for certain. And maybe that uncertainty is the truest, most human part of the entire story. Derek Holt was arrested 4 months later. SEC investigation, corporate espionage charges, 3 counts of fraud. He's currently awaiting trial. Claire Patterson left New York. Ryan's team confirmed she moved back to her hometown in Ohio. She still teaches 3rd grade. She never spoke to the press. She never sold her story. She never tried to contact Ryan. As for Ryan, he sold the Brooklyn apartment last year. But before he did, he went back once, just to stand in it one more time. In the small kitchen where they'd made terrible pasta, by the window where they'd watched the rain. He stood there for a long time. Then he left. He's never gone back. Some people close to Ryan say he's different now. Quieter in a way that's not sad, more deliberate, like a man who learned something irreversible about love and trust and the price of wanting to be known. He still has the ring. The modest one, not the $4 million diamond. The one he was going to give her. He hasn't said why he kept it. Maybe he doesn't know yet. Or maybe he does, and some truths are too private even for a man with nothing left to hide. If this story moved you, if you felt that somewhere in your chest, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you're new here, this channel is built for stories exactly like this one. Stories about real human beings, real choices, real love and real betrayal, and the messy, complicated truth that lives somewhere in between. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because we have more stories coming and you do not want to miss what's next. I'll see you there.